He had a great record with Johnny Cash called Jackson. Wonder if you could get him over here listening.
I'd sure like to try.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. And I'm glad to see you, neighbor.
Johnny Cash is kind of like pizza, or sunshine, or ice cream. If somebody doesn't like him, there's probably something wrong with them. If the man in black is not for you, then you are not for me. But not everybody was exactly best buds with Johnny during his lifetime. Did you know that the Grand Ole Opry, the legendary country music stage show, banned Johnny for life? In fact, they didn't even want him to perform in the first place. Today we're taking a look at the strange, controversial war between Johnny and the Opry. How did Johnny start a natural disaster? Why was he jailed?
I don't remember going to jail. I was on amphetamines.
And why the heck was he banned for life from the Opry? It's a sad, strange, twisted story of drugs, crime, addiction, and eventually redemption. And it may forever change how you look at both the Opry and the man himself, Johnny Cash. Before we dive in, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, it really helps. And subscribe to the channel for more country content like this. Now if you hear that lonesome whistle blowing, it means it's time to go find out.
What happened?
Black clothes, long hair, and sideburns. The Opry is country music's most historic and famous venue. Over the last century, it helped make country music accessible to everybody. And Johnny Cash is arguably the most widely respected country artist there ever was. And if you disagree, that's okay, just battle it out in the comments. And yeah, a few other guys have sold a few more records, but nobody has ever combined critical acclaim with the commercial success like the Man in Black. So why didn't the Opry think Johnny was good to perform there? Well, when Johnny Cash first showed up to the most famous show on Earth, or at least the South, he didn't exactly get the warmest welcome. The year was 1956, and his incredible song I Walk the Line was creeping up the charts, but hadn't yet hit #1. The manager kept him waiting for 2 entire hours. When he finally showed up, he made it clear he didn't think Johnny had the right stuff. In Johnny's own words, quote, "He looked at my black clothes and long hair and sideburns and said, 'What makes you think you belong on the Grand Ole Opry?' So I said, well, I've got a record in the top 10 best sellers, which I think was Folsom Prison Blues. I said, I think they'd like to hear me. And yeah, I mean, has a guy ever been more right?" Johnny Cash took the stage and of course gave an incredible performance. He played I Walk the Line, Get Rhythm, and So Doggone Lonesome. And that same night, he met a woman named June Carter. Both of them were married at the time, but they would eventually fall in love. I'm sure you've seen the film Walk the Line about their legendary romance, but it would be over a decade until they would be together. And it was actually at the Opry where Johnny, in a violent fit of rage, would nearly lose June forever. Banned for life. As the 60s went on, Johnny was catapulted into worldwide fame. He had millions of dollars and the girl of his dreams, but he was hiding a deep, dark secret. One that would nearly destroy him and take away everything he loved. And it all came to a head in one shocking incident at the Grand Ole Opry. You see, over the years, Johnny had slowly picked up a drug addiction. When he first moved to Nashville, he shared an apartment with Waylon Jennings, who had introduced him to stimulants. And drugs soon became Johnny's morning coffee and his before-bed cup of tea. He would use them to wake up in the morning and to fall asleep at night. But as the years went on, he needed more and more just to function. Johnny Cash became erratic and unpredictable. And in 1965, Johnny was camping with his nephew when disaster struck. A fire started and spread, culminating in a giant wildfire. Johnny claimed it was a defective part of his camper that caused the blaze. But his nephew told a very different story, saying Johnny started the fire and was too drugged up to notice. The firestorm destroyed a large portion of the park and caused some protected birds to flee. So if your partner is ever mad about you about a long bender, well, just tell him at least you did not burn down a national park. It was that same year Johnny took the stage at the Opry again, filled to the brim with his typical concoction of pills and booze. There was a problem with the mic stand, and Johnny was not having it. Like a man possessed, he smashed all the lights on stage with the mic stand, actually sending broken glass flying into the audience. Johnny then fled the scene and took June's car, a brand new Cadillac. Outside, a thunderstorm was raging. He crashed the ride into a utility pole and broke his nose. But possibly the most painful moment of the episode came right after. The cop who showed up at the scene was a man named Rip Nix, who just happened to be June Carter's husband. Wow, that's pretty awkward. Meanwhile, the Grand Ole Opry did not mince words. Johnny Cash was, in fact, banned for life. Even more devastating to Johnny, June had had enough. Johnny had been pestering her about getting married, but she made it clear that unless Johnny got clean, they would never be together. She wouldn't even continue to tour with him. So Johnny knew in his heart he had to get clean, but that was easier said than done. The next few years would push him to his limit. The road to recovery. It's a common cliche. Things have to get worse before they get better. But for Johnny, there was never any guarantee that he would crawl out of that hole. He was banned from the Opry, and the love of his life was about to cut things off. How would he find the strength to come back? Well, the same year as the Opry incident, Johnny was arrested in El Paso by a narcotics squad. He had hundreds of illegal pills hidden inside his guitar case. It was a very sad metaphor for the turn his life had taken. That drugs were filling the space that music had once filled in his heart. Johnny's last arrest came in 1967 when he wrecked another car and was found in the wreckage with another small mountain of pills. He tried to bribe the officer who showed up, but was turned down and spent another night in jail. Looking back, Johnny would say, quote, "I was taking the pills for a while, and then the pills started taking me." It was during that long and lonesome night that Johnny vowed never to let drugs control him again. It took an entire team of people to help Johnny clean up his act.
I would like to say, first of all, thanks to the people that helped support me to make this possible too.
June and both her parents moved in with Johnny for a month. If it was me, the in-laws being around so much would probably make me do more drugs. But hey, it seemed to work for Johnny. And luckily, he was finally free of that demon that had been haunting him. Open arms. Johnny was finally clean, but would he be able to claw back the things most important to him? Or was it too late? Johnny proposed to June Carter on stage in Ontario. They were married a week later in Kentucky. Until her death years later, Johnny would never let June go again. And something else pretty important happened in 1968. The Grand Ole Opry welcomed Johnny Cash back with open arms. Over the next few decades, he would perform with the show on and off. Today, the institution that had once snubbed him and then banned him recognizes him as one of their most impressive members. Johnny would have more struggles with addiction in the coming years. It would take many more low points and several inpatient rehab treatments until he was finally clean for good in 1992. But he had proven to June and the Opry that he had what it took to get clean. Through recovery, Johnny also rediscovered his Christianity. He credits his faith with helping him stay clean. He was even ordained as a minister. The war between Johnny and the Opry was a bitter one, but fortunately, it resolved in peace. And today, Johnny is recognized as the legend that he is. And the Opry, well, it continues to be the most important show in country music. And buddy, thank God for that. Alright, that's enough of me. Now we need to hear from you. Do you remember the Opry banning Johnny Cash? Do you think it was the right move? What would you do if your in-laws moved in for a month? And finally, what's your favorite song by Johnny Cash? And hey, if you ever got to see Johnny Cash perform live, what the heck was that like? Get in the comments and tell us all things Johnny Cash. If you enjoyed today's video, please click that thumbs up icon to show us some support. Subscribe to our channel and come back often so we can keep telling you what happened.